So first off then from our panel, we have David Karvala. He's a March 21 activist from Barcelona and he's involved in the Catalonian independence movement. Thank you.
Yes, some of you might notice that my accent isn't very Catalan. I did grow up in London. I've been in Catalonia for 23 years, so by any definition I'm now Catalan as well as other things. We planned this meeting about 2 months ago, and we didn't think we'd be so successful in mobilising everything in Barcelona just in time. So I was intending to give a sort of historical talk about how we got here. And I'll try and do that in about 3 minutes and spend the rest of the time talking about what's been happening the last few days in Catalonia, because I suspect that's why it's a rather bigger meeting than it would have been. But it's important to know where this comes from, because there are still lots of debates on the left, and probably more than debates, just lack of knowledge about the question of Catalonia. People think just some rich bastards that want to cut themselves off from the poor. It's not at all that. It's something completely different. I can't explain all of it. Some of it other comrades will explain. What I'll just say is a very brief timeline. 1714, Spain invades. 1939, Franco invades. 1970s, relative democracy, with a constitution agreed under the shadow of the remains of the dictatorship. And that's the regime of 1978 that we've been living under since then. A constitution that refuses the right to decide and gives the army the duty of maintaining the unity of Spain. Catalonia is an autonomous community within that Spanish state. In 2005, the then Socialist in the sense of Labour Party, led government in Catalonia tries to have a sort of reformed, slightly improved autonomy status within Spain, because that will calm everybody down, a new settlement, and that will bury the problem for 40 years. The Tories, and in fact the Socialist Party in Madrid, tear to bits the autonomy statute that was agreed overwhelmingly by the Catalan parliament. They send the shreds back to Catalonia, which are then voted on, and then the Tories again take that to the Constitutional Tribunal that then was working very slowly. In 2010, they issued a verdict suspending many parts of that new autonomy statute. The next day, there was a demonstration in the centre of Barcelona of 1 million people, organised by Ona Curto, which I've been working for the last year as a low-down technical worker, not as a boss. So that was, in a sense, the beginning of what's happening now. There was an attempt to hold a referendum in 2014 that was blocked by the Spanish state, and the then Conservative government accepted that block. They said, okay, it's not really a referendum, and so even though for that unofficial consultation, they took the former Catalan president to court. There's a whole series of politicians being taken to court, but the president of Catalan parliament was taken to court for allowing parliament to discuss these questions. So that was 2014, they banned a referendum, there's elections in 2015 that was meant to be a sort of plebiscite elections. If you support independence, you vote for the independence list, and if not, you won't. It came out as a sort of split thing. But nonetheless, that elected parliament with a majority of independentists, with an impressive 10 members of parliament for the anti-capitalist left, from the coup of Ona and Kim, who's hopefully we'll get him on the phone later. Things are quieter today than yesterday, but probably they won't be as quiet tomorrow, so it's a good day. So we have that parliament that then tries to hold this referendum. In a complicated context, there are lots of debates in the Spanish state. Again, Héctor will speak about some of them, debates within Podemos, though that has changed in the last 2 days. So the referendum was planned for the 1st of October, and the Spanish government, the PP, I suppose the easiest way of saying it, they've gone mad. Absolutely apeshit mad. I wrote an article in August that appeared in Socialist Review a few weeks ago that said they will stop at nothing to try and impede the referendum. And when I wrote that, well, maybe I'm going a bit too far, but no, I didn't go too far. I mean, it was 3 days ago. Rajoy, the Spanish president, said, don't make us do things we don't want to do. I mean, he's talking like an abusive husband. You know, you made me hit you. That's the sort of treatment we're getting from Spain. So, we had a situation where 80% of the Catalan population wanted to have a referendum. About 50% wanted to vote yes in a referendum. And then of the rest, people say, well, one of the figures says 41% for independence and 48% against, which is actually, you could call it misleading or you could call it a lie. You've got 48% that want something. Some of those want the status quo, but there's a lot who actually want a sort of federal situation inside the Spanish state, a completely different relationship with the Spanish state. But again, going back to the analogy, it's saying, I don't want to divorce my husband, I want to have a free and equal relationship with him. But if your husband is who he is, then that isn't an option. You know, you can talk about it, it's not real. So the idea now of a federal relationship with the Spanish state as it is now is not real. So we have about half that want independence and about a quarter against it. And others want something that right now isn't on the table. How do you dissolve that? You have a referendum. And that's why they have done everything they can to stop it. Now, this has been building up very, very quickly in the last few days. We started a few days ago with raids on print works, places where they were printing leaflets. In the context of Spain, in the context of Catalonia, they're talking leaflets, they're talking about the referendum. In a different context, it could be any type of radical leaflets. Then, I can't remember the order of things. I mean, they had the post office stop the delivery of thousands and thousands of the magazine of the organisation I work for. I was going to bring one sort of contraband magazine, but I forgot. I've been a bit busy. But I mean, these are the sort of things. Do you remember in 2015, you had all the, not the creme de la creme, the shit of the leaders of the world demonstrating after Charlie Hebdo in defense of liberty, of freedom of expression. You had all of those there defending freedom of expression. And now one of those, Rajoy, is raiding print works, stopping magazines from being delivered, taking people to court for having discussions in Parliament. Then the latest thing was in Madrid, they had a meeting that actually went ahead magnificently. They planned a meeting last weekend to discuss Catalonia's right to decide, and they tried to stop them from having that meeting. They said it would not be held in any council premises, although there's a left council that wanted to hold it. So we're having a total block on freedom of expression and a block on the right to decide of 7.5 million people. And those are people, as I said, we don't know how many really want independence, how many don't, because they won't let us vote. So we had this sort of gradual build-up of raids on print works, blockage on a meeting in Madrid, which actually went ahead impressively in a theatre in a sort of the poorer part of Madrid. I was going to say like Brick Lane, but Brick Lane's not poor anymore, is it? I've been away for 20 years. So in the poorest part of Madrid, hundreds of people outside that couldn't get in. This is the Madrid that the Spanish Tories thought was their home ground. These are the people that, 38 million people that would stand with them against these evil Catalans. And it's not happening like that. How long have I been? I've got 2 minutes left. Shit. Okay, is that my 10 minutes? Oh, it wasn't 10. Right, so then that came to a head yesterday morning with a raid by the Guardia Civil, which is a Spanish military police. They're not a civilian police force, they're part of the armed forces. Raids by the Guardia Civil on, I don't know how many, 6, 8, I don't know how many government officers, I'm not good on figures. They thought, but by doing that, I mean, they raided these offices. They've so far arrested, I think, 10 or 12 people, going from ministers in the Catalan government down to ordinary civil servants in the Catalan administration. I mean, going into a house, taking a kid's computer, I mean, it's just scandalous. So they did that thinking that this would put an end to it. And anybody who saw the images of Barcelona yesterday knows they haven't put an end to it. Yesterday in the morning, I was there in front of one of the main government buildings where the main rally was later, with a couple of thousand. I was tweeting with 1,000 to 2,000. That was about 9 or 10 in the morning. By late afternoon, early evening, I think there's about 100,000 people. It's a big city, 1.5 million, but it's for a few hours of notice. It was impressive. This morning, even more impressive, there were 20,000 people, well, some people say only 5,000 people, a massive, massive rally for 12 in the morning in the centre of Barcelona, outside a central court. A rally called by Ona Curto, where I work for, and the ANC, the other big organisation, Catalan National Assembly. And they announced that they're going to have a permanent presence there in front of the court until they free those prisoners. This is impressive. We'll have a message later from the president of Ona Curto. The word revolution springs to mind. I mean, we're not saying this is a revolution, this is 1917, but we have 100,000 people defying the police. Even a few days ago, when they went to raid print offices, they had hundreds of people outside waving homemade ballot papers, saying, where are the papers, where are the papers? They were looking for the ballot papers. Actually, yesterday managed to find 10 million ballot papers, but printing companies can work very, very fast. So they're trying to strangle the democratic right to decide of the Catalan people. And that is not only about what flag there is. One of the things I was meant to explain, in the last few years, they've had laws against bullfighting, laws against evictions of poor families and against cutting off their electricity, laws against fracking, taxes on nuclear power, laws to promote real equality between men and women in the workplace and to stop sexual harassment, laws against bullfighting. Those have all been overturned by the Spanish Constitutional Court. So we're talking about a society that's moving left, that wants real change, both in terms of the national question and in the social question, and they're being blocked by a Catalan Tory party and a Socialist party. The good news is that after a lot of toing and froing by the Commons, that's the sort of Podemos type party in Catalonia, this morning the main leaders of Catalonia en Común were there on the protest in front of the court. Yesterday I was talking to a guy in Iniciativa, which is a sort of Euro-Communist party, who has never been independentist. He said, this is not about independence anymore, it's about democracy. And if we want to defend democracy, we have no choice but to split us off from Spain. That doesn't mean that we write off Spain. Last night there were 40 rallies across Spain in defence of Catalan rights. This is a struggle that's a struggle for the rights of Catalonia, but also for democratic rights everywhere. So please support us.
David will be followed by Angela McCormick. Angela is a member of the Socialist Workers' Party in Glasgow, and she was involved in organising for the Yes campaign in the Scottish independence referendum in 2015. So Angela.
Thank you. Cheers, Hector. I'll keep my comments brief. I'd like to thank Hector and the organisers of tonight's meeting for the invite. As they said, when it was discussed, we didn't think that it would be in this context. So I've got a couple of just messages and points, because I think tonight's all about how we can offer solidarity, listen to the voices coming for the inspiring struggle that's taking place in Catalonia. In terms of solidarity, today in Scotland there were 2 protests called within the last 24 hours in the Radical Independence campaign. One outside the Spanish consulate in Edinburgh and one in the city centre of Glasgow. And I just want to bring solidarity greetings from that protest this evening between 5 and 7 in Glasgow. There were between 150 to 200 people there at very short notice. They had a range of speakers. I'm sure I'm going to try this, and I think the kind of posters they had were Visca Democracy. Visca Democracy. Long live democracy, long live Catalonia. The other thing that happened today, interestingly, is one of the main newspapers, The National, which is an independence supporting newspaper, provided every one of its purchasers a pull-out cover of the flag, Catalan flag, with a C on the front with "We support the right the Catalan people to choose." So you were to tweet that all day. So clearly in Scotland, a lot of the eyes are on this struggle in Catalonia. So I'll just add, as I say, some comments. And I should say that prior to this, there's a national demonstration on the 1st of October outside the Spanish consulate, so this has been planned in advance. And what can we say about other solidarity? The struggle wins, the struggle deepens, the demands of ordinary working class people to have control over their lives, to have democracy that's meaningful, to have a democracy that then impacts on their material day-to-day lives. And for that right to choose for themselves will be something that we'll be celebrating on the 1st of October. But regardless, whatever happens in the coming days, we will be there standing with you, and I think that's a clear message. As the Chair said, I was active, like many other people, in the Scottish independence referendum campaign in 2014. As a socialist, we supported yes, we campaigned for yes, and I should have brought my badge. I think I have got a badge, but I've left it in another bag, and it's like still yes, still yes, still yes. Can't go through a lot of that. Comrades may have read about it, be familiar about it. I'm going to just try and pick out a couple of things. First thing, I mean, I don't know if it is probably worth saying, but Britain is rotten to the core. So there, should we let support independence? Britain is absolutely fundamentally rotten to the core. Rotten today, rotten yesterday, rotten 10 years ago, rotten 100 years ago, rotten 200 years ago. So when socialists discuss what should our attitude be to the possible breakup of that bourgeois state in whatever form, we embraced it wholeheartedly. And we would do so again, in fact, and we are still for that. We look at its imperialist past, we look at its record. If we can split that state, that is a step forward for all of us. It's a step forward for the poor people that are living in Tyrrell Hamlets. It's a step forward for the people fighting for justice for Grenfell. It's a step forward for workers fighting for decent pay and respect at work, regardless of where they live in this country, whether they live in London, Birmingham, Manchester, Edinburgh or Aberdeen. And I totally and I absolutely stand by that. So Britain is rotten. It's also about democracy, which is really kind of a theme in tonight's meeting, and about how we achieve democracy, how we defend democracy, and who is best placed to defend democracy, and not only to defend it, to extend it, to make it real. And on that basis, still yes, still for the breakup of that rotten state, Britain. A couple of things in terms of being a socialist, being a Marxist, being a revolutionary of the left, and engaging in those struggles for independence. There's really one clear thing, one message, one lesson for that experience, and it still stands today, that when you're engaged in that struggle, if we really are any movement, no matter what they're looking to break up that state, looking to increase democracy, looking for autonomy, looking for self-determination, the message it goes out needs to be a left message. It needs to be a radical message. It needs to be an anti-capitalist message. It needs to be an anti-austerity message. It needs to be a pro-refugee, anti-racist message. It needs to be an anti-NATO, anti-nuclear message. It needs to be a message that says this is about a different kind of society. And even in the process, there will be many people who will vote for breaking up that state, who maybe don't share the same politics. The key to actually winning that and making it a real change, and not just a transfer of power from one set of greedy gets to another, is that message. And we showed that in Scotland, and I feel really I'm a bit abashed even talking about it in the midst of the comrades here and the struggle that's taking place. But I will make that point again, that there was a radical transformation in the streets and in the hearts of working class communities in Scotland in the last few weeks of that campaign that transformed it, made it completely different to what had gone before. Nothing like what our comrades in Catalonia are doing just now, and nothing. However, there was an absolute real and fundamental transformation. And what changed it, it was the point where it became clear that the smartness of the leaders of that, the SNP who were leading, the fight for independence from a mainstream point of view, wasn't really cutting. Is it no surprising that the 21st century, in the world that we live in, and then in the world in which people are really struggling to make sense of, they're looking for hope, that a message that says, vote to break up this state, let's have another state, but don't worry, nothing will change. You'll still have your royal family, you'll still have your pound, it'll be fine, nothing will change. Sorry, that's not inspiring, it's not exciting. The point where they got it, well, wait a minute, we need to talk about the NHS, we need to talk about low pay, we need to talk about things that are real to working class people, transformed it, and then it fed back, and people going, oh, this might be a good idea after all. And working class people, and again I'm not equating it, however there is something that we all share no matter where we are in the world, and it's the collective response of working class people to defend their rights, to defend their gains. And there are moments in time when people change and they come together, and there was periods in Scotland for a short time where it felt like that, where there was a transformation, where we were on the streets, where we could have won. Now, if we'd have done that earlier, we might have won, we might have just pushed it over the edge. But that is sort of water under a bridge, but it's water that's not going back. So these are the things, and I think that's what I would say. So really, it's all about solidarity, because this is not, I think as David was saying, a question of maybe then should the left support independence, and that is certainly something we should discuss. But we know that there should be no question, should the left stand with the Catalonian people, should the left stand against the repression of the Spanish state? What is the future for all of us, and any of us in Europe, if the Spanish state is able to do and get away and succeed? Do we not think that the rulers of every state in Europe will be saying, see how you go on, we'll try it where we are, because the world we live in is a battle, no matter where you live, in this Europe, in this world. So there should be no question, and I know there isn't actually, I'm glad everybody feels it, that we stand absolutely 100-200% behind, and we cannot be quiet in the face of such repressive, anti-democratic measures and oppressive that threaten us all. And I clearly would say beyond you should defend democracy, you should support the fight for independence, engage in it and be confident that within that movement, while many people have ideas and opinions, that a radical socialist, anti-capitalist, anti-racist, pro-refugee, positive progressive message that talks to people at their level can be transformative in a meaningful and a victorious way, and can be the catalyst for many other struggles of working class people to put an end to this rotten system, to put an end to the rotten system that lets thousands of children drown in the Mediterranean, that starves pensioners in Greece, that locks up parliamentarians in Catalonia, that spews out lies, that calls Jeremy Corbyn all sorts and everything, and oh my God, panics at even suggestion of a socialist British Prime Minister. So I'll just finish there. There is massive solidarity, and we need to maybe just think how we can help, support, give solidarity in our limited way, and really be absolutely inspired and moved to strengthen our struggles here, to smash the Tory scum where we are, and the best to the people of Catalonia. Thanks.
Kim Arafat was a MP in the Catalan Parliament from 2011 to 2015, and we have Ona here from the CUP in England who's going to read a statement on his behalf, and we will hopefully be trying to have a Skype link up, I believe, with Kim at the end of the meeting, but we're not sure if that's going to be possible yet. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I beg my pardon for my pronunciation. This was really a quick answer because we just know that Kim couldn't arrive this morning, so we have to improvise everything. Fortunately, we have a letter of him, and I can read it. He starts saying that he's very sorry for not attending this meeting, and so do I. So, well, as you have seen, we are living these days a state of exception. The Spanish state has deployed thousands of military police units in Catalonia, and it's sending it to newspapers and institutions, as David had told you before, mainly without any judicial order. They even tried yesterday to assault the national headquarters of CUP, which is in Barcelona, and it's really a small one. So the street was quite narrow, and it was massive answer from the people, which was really, really, really happy, and we were really, really, really surprised, because it was like all covered. Without any reason, explanation, no judicial order, in a clear attempt to provoke violence and fear. We do stress the fact of no judicial order because we asked many times for it and they couldn't give us, so that's quite illegal. Also yesterday, 14 officers from the Catalan government were detained and the headquarters of the Catalan government were raided by military police. Half of them remain still detained. We want to send most greetings for them because many families don't know about them, and many fathers and husbands and wives are still waiting to be released. This is absolutely disproportionate repressions is the only answer we get from the Spanish state in response to the will of the Catalan people to democratically decide its political future in a referendum. For most Catalans, it recalls the time of Franco, as all civil and political freedoms and rights we fought for during 40 years of dictatorship have been suppressed. I must say here that yesterday, mostly of the main roads, were full of not only young people, not only students, but also grandfathers, granddaughters, and also grannies and older people. I don't want to be rude, but and they were claiming again and again for something that they thought that they had before, that they had fought before. We see every day how police is going after people seeking posters in the street of celebrating events to discuss about independence. Not only posters, leaflets, advertisements. Even in our mass media, we cannot advertise any kind of information about the referendum. They've been persecuted, so it's right. Well. However, there have been massive and peaceful demonstrations in front of every attack. And here I can say that that's very thanks for different organizations, not only political, but also cultural or social, like the Omnium Cultural, which Rafael has written some statement, and also the National Catalan Assembly, which was created to get the independence of Catalonia and to push the political people to get the independence. Yeah, much better. After 7 years of mass demonstration for independence, we cannot forget the effort of many others since 1978 and before. And after making all possible proposals to the Spanish state, we know that there will not be any chance, neither now nor after, to celebrate a legal referendum. They simply oppose it and have the power to oppose it forever. Last elections in Spain showed that 2/3 of the voters and of the Congress belongs to the same ideology. Spanish right-wing nationalism represented by Partido Popular, PP, Ciudadanos, and the socialist ones, which is PSOE. I would like to say also that last election in Parliament, in Spanish Parliament, most of the Spain vote the right wing, while not the Basque country nor Catalonia, which vote completely different one. So you can see clearly the difference, the ideology difference between the two regions. I can say country yet, but. For us, the CUP, the Catalan Socialist movement for independence, we see in this referendum the only way to make the regime fall and open a democratic and participatory constitutional process that gives us, the workers, a new institutional and constitutional frame of social, democratic and political rights. And we always knew that the Spanish regime would never give up without massive disobedience, mass protest, and people's self-organization. I must say here that it's quite extraordinary that nowadays, if you follow the Catalan press, you will see articles and opinions from different people telling now that the regime will fall. And it's extraordinary because not 2 years ago, not 3 years ago, nobody speaks with those terms. So nowadays, they do identify this situation as part of the regime, and that's quite a thing that we have to stress and I think study, because it's quite, well, for me it's really extraordinary. The other thing is that most people now, they are saying that most of the masts are fallen. And most of the masts, they are meaning masts for the Spanish politicians. Most of them, they came from the Franco and Franquism dictatorships. So we're still having the same, I was going to say shit, but I can't say so the same environment. Yeah, I can say shit, so the same shit forever, you know? I'm just nervous. So furthermore, we deeply believe that the fight of Catalan people for a sovereign republic is also a struggle for another Europe, made from below, putting diversity in the center of politics and distributing wealth and rights among all its citizens instead of the current mainstream ideologies in Europe, which are promoting racism, inequality, poverty and war. We cannot forget Austria, Norway, Sweden. There are today 9 days left for the referendum. Only 9. That's very good. Everything is ready in spite of repression, and that's true because the concern from Catalonia is everything is planned, everything is right, keep calm, just push. And people in Catalonia is aware of the importance of resisting every day until the referendum can take place. People can decide, and if the yes wins, we hope so, independence is proclaimed. It's not that easy, we'll see what happens, but Kim says so I trust him. This is not a matter of flags or national identities. It's a struggle between people's legitimacy and state authority, between people and regime, as I said. We are not longer subjects of any autocratic power. We want to be free citizens of a new world. Can we have that? Don't we deserve that? Can we have the right of that? Well, so thanks for being here. Don't let us fall alone as we all let Greeks fall alone. Greece, 2 years ago, and Catalonia this week are common struggles for a better world, made by the people and for the people. Thank you very much.
Have our last speaker on the panel, which is Héctor Sierra. Héctor is a Spanish member of the Socialist Workers' Party in South London.
Thanks. Okay, across the world, for the last 10 years, following the 2007 economic crisis, we have been seeing how the neoliberal and capitalist order is crumbling. And the Spanish state has been no exception to this. There has been brutal austerity imposed on ordinary people, and there has been resistance. But crucially, because the current Spanish political setup is the result of the defeat of the workers' movement at the end of the dictatorship in the late 70s, in spite of very important gains, and the victory of the reformist sectors of that regime, when resistance to austerity began 7 years ago, it very quickly led into the reopening of unresolved political questions. And thus, cornerstones of the dictatorship, like the two-party system, the monarchy, or national unity, began to be seriously questioned by ordinary people. This crystallized in the millions-strong pro-independence movement in Catalonia, which today is the only thing preventing the PP government from leaving behind the crisis that has threatened them for the last decade, but also the deepest and most mature episode of this crisis. Unfortunately, the bulk of the Spanish left, led by Podemos and the United Left, have refused to lend support to this movement. This refusal is commonly founded in 2 reasons. First, they claim that the movement is dominated by the right, but this is nonsense. The Catalan liberals have waved many times the flag of nationalism to divert attention from their own role implementing cuts and austerity, sometimes worse than the one implemented by the OPP, but they had never supported independence until very recently. Because the interests of the classes they represented were actually interlinked with those of Spanish capitalism. It's been only in the last few years, following the growing of the movement and the radicalization of their bases as a consequence of the crisis, that they have embraced independence. Like in Scotland, the much more complex reality is that independence means very different things for the classes involved in the process. And former President Artur Mas provided a very good example of how this works. In a visit to the US some time ago, he claimed that an independent Catalonia as a state would be loyal to NATO, and the current president has suggested that it would have an army. At the same time, as a consequence of the anti-war movement in 2003 and other struggles, there is a broad consensus among ordinary people that the country wouldn't have an army. And you can see the same tension at work around many other issues, like opposing fracking, welcoming more refugees, and of course austerity, and what kind of society do we want to build. And crucially, the intransigence of the Spanish state, the fact that moving towards independence has meant, once and again, opposing the framework of Spanish legality and having to transcend it, has meant that all along it has been the left, and especially the radical left, who have driven the process forward. The neoliberals and even the social democrats within the pro-independence majority government have did it all the way and have focused their efforts in getting support from European Union institutions and other countries. The CUP comrades can take pride in the fact that from the beginning they told truth to people and they told independent supporters that going ahead with the referendum would involve an open confrontation with the Spanish state. It wouldn't be possible within the framework of Spanish legality, and also not to have an illusion in the European Union as, you know, an institution that is going to intervene in the defense of democracy and human rights. The other argument they put forward is that supporting independence undermines the unity of the Spanish working class. But this is misleading, because such a referendum would then create this division. What creates this division is the continuous scapegoating of the national minorities, above all the Catalans and the Basques, by the mainstream media, and continuous attacks on their national rights. Surely, the way to achieve unity among workers is for the Spanish left to support and campaign for these rights and challenge scapegoating. But most worrying, since the referendum law was passed 2 weeks ago in the Catalan parliament, the leadership of Podemos and the United Left not only have sided with the state against independence, but also against the referendum itself. They say it doesn't offer enough guarantees and that it's not the referendum they had agitated for. What do they mean by this? What do they mean by guarantees? Basically, what they mean is that the PP government would allow the referendum to take place. And us, from the left, should say that the fact that millions of people have taken to the streets for years, the fact that according to polls up to 80% of Catalans support holding a referendum, are the only guarantees we should care about, and not what a corrupt, repressive, conservative government has to say. A leading politician of Podemos posed this question sharply. In a public letter, he accused the Catalan left of not being interested in removing Rajoy from office, because that would undermine the arguments for independence. The reality is that the Catalan left were among the few who supported an unsuccessful vote of no confidence tabled by Podemos a few months ago. A Catalan politician replied today to this by saying that fraternity is not telling our people, wait until we win. Fraternity is letting who always loses win and using their victory as an example. Your fight is our fight. The question is why ours is not yours. But there is even more, because you simply can't expect the PP government to agree to a referendum in the same way as David Cameron did some years ago here. And you can't, both because of the authoritarian past of the PP, a party founded by the ministers of the fascist dictatorship and people who signed death sentences, and also because they find themselves in a much weaker position than Cameron did here. So this disobedient, illegal referendum, we have to be clear about it, it's the only possible one. If you support the right of the Catalan people to self-determination, you have to support this referendum, because there won't be another. Well, repression is escalating spectacularly. And while you have the Spanish government and the Spanish nationalist lobby talking about sending the army on the 1st of October to seize the ballot boxes, to arrest the Catalan government, and to suspend Catalan autonomy, by the way, most of this is already happening, you can't simply say that you're a neutral player and that both Catalan and Spanish nationalism are bad things and you should oppose them. You have to take sides. Because make no mistake, the consequence of what happens on the 1st of October will be far-reaching. If the movement is defeated, who benefits from this? The PP does, there's no doubt of that. They will feel strengthened, and they will use it as an opportunity to clamp down on opposition everywhere else in the state. Even more, I mean, the level of repression they're already using against a millions-strong movement means that, you know, if the movement is repressed, that situation, the situation that will unfold, will be sustainable only through the use of levels of repression unseen yet. And on the contrary, a victory for the movement in Catalonia would open up very exciting possibilities, not only for the left there, but for the left in the rest of the state. Cool. And that is why, really, as part of the escalation and repression we have seen in the last weeks, several solidarity acts, solidarity events being held across the Spanish state outside Catalonia have been prohibited, or there have been attempts to prohibit them by the Spanish government and the judicial system, because they are very aware of how dangerous solidarity could be. They are terrified of a situation where, you know, solidarity among workers develops beyond a national division, and they begin to realize that, you know, the repression being used against them today, against Catalans today, will be used against the rest of the Spanish workers tomorrow. And yeah, okay. Yeah, final point. It's not only this. In the last couple of days, we have seen thousands marching in the south of Spain against issues like unemployment, high levels of unemployment, privatization of the health service, and so on. These people, you know, aren't marching for the rights of Catalans. But what will happen on the 1st of October if these people and the millions sick after years of austerity and repression see that the PP is not all powerful and actually can be defeated by ordinary people?
I want to say that I'm extremely proud of the people of Catalonia for keeping it strong against all the oppression and all the threats, and being in the streets fighting side by side for a better future and for a better country, and to get rid of this fascist Spanish state who doesn't let us be who we want to be. I'm extremely proud. I'm extremely proud, and I thought this would not happen, but it's happening. People are keeping strong, people are fighting side by side, and this is amazing. And this is the opportunity of our lives. We can get rid forever of this fascist state. And this is, as I said, is a great opportunity. We need to take it, we need to resist, and the thing I regret most at the moment is not being in Catalonia next to my brothers and sisters. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very inspiring meeting about very inspiring events in Catalonia. And I think one thing that is scandalous is how the British media and how the British state have actually treated what's going on. How the BBC, treated this? I thought, how the government over here treated this? I thought they were against repression. I thought they were for democracy. It exposes so many lies. It exposes how venal our own government is when it comes to, state power. Of course, they can't support, the Catalonian people fighting back because it actually puts their own state into question. So our job here is to actually get down to put pressure and to demand that our government condemn the violence of the Spanish state, to stand 100% with our brothers and sisters. It's a brilliant time. This is a light that's going out across Europe. Thank you very much.
Yes, first of all, solidarity to the really what begins to look like a people's rising in Catalonia. Which is absolutely fantastic, and it's a sign of the times, isn't it, as well? I do want to ask something, David. If this was a bad marriage with an abusive husband, why did you get married in the first place?
We did it. We must take it back.
We were forced into marriage.
I couldn't help it.
We were forced into marriage, that's it.
But more seriously, I was wondering, this also puts on obviously another question in the background, and I was wondering what is the situation, what are the arguments about that within the movements in Catalonia, about the relationship to the European Union and how that affects where the movement might be going and the kind of struggles, political struggles ahead.
Hello, I just got on contact today with a member of the Sortu party in the Basque Country. I asked him if he wanted to say anything to this meeting, and only got 2 words. Basically, it was greetings and solidarity. The people from the Basque Country follow this very, very close, because you have said that in the last 10 years it's been repression in Catalonia. We have been in the last 80 years. We know exactly what's going on. We were told with no violence we can talk about independence. There is no violence in Catalonia. You can talk about what? About nothing. The law in the Basque Country is very different than the rest in Spain. Now cross the river, and now you got it in all the state. Basically, start in Catalonia, will end up in Gibraltar because you cannot cross the river, but it will be there. So solidarity from the Basque Country, as the Perico Solabarria say, if they don't let you dream, don't let them sleep. So give a hand.
I think the Spanish state has a bit of a love-hate relationships with referendums, depending on where they're held. If there is an attempt to hold a referendum in Venezuela to remove democratically elected left-wing President Nicolas Maduro, then of course they're all for it. If there is an illegal and a very, very poorly organized and managed plebiscite by the Venezuelan opposition to remove on the question of the Constitutional Assembly in Venezuela, then of course the Spanish government are in favor of that. They are in favor of any referendum or election that removes any sort of anti-neoliberal left-wing or socialist government. But at the same time, when there's a referendum held in order to support the sovereignty and independence of an actual nation, of a real nation with its own language, culture, and history, then it sends in the tanks. Well, not yet, but it sends in the army that does everything in its power to stop it. So this is the kind of hypocrisy which I believe we must really highlight every single time that the Spanish government says that what is happening in Catalonia is illegal. And so I just wanted to make one more correction to Hector with regards to Podemos and the left. You forgot to mention that while Podemos and Izquierda Unida do not support independence of Catalonia, they have, on the other hand, they have been actively demonstrating against the repression of the civil guard in Catalonia. They have been actively organizing and helping to organize actions against the repression and for the right of self-determination. And the Podemos branch in Catalonia, Podem, have recently voted 64% to support the demonstrations on October 1st to support the right to decide in Catalonia. So I just wanted to make that point.
Charlie Kimber, the Joint National Secretary of the Socialist Workers' Party in Britain, no connection with the misnamed Socialist Workers' Party in the Spanish state. There's no doubt that the struggle going on is immensely inspiring in Catalonia, but there are very powerful enemies against the Catalan movement as well. Rajoy has played an immense gamble, which at the moment is backfiring against him, it seems to me. A gamble that he can destroy the movement and come out stronger from it. It doesn't feel like that at the moment to me. One of the most inspiring things, I think, was the news that the dockers of Barcelona had refused to work on the Rhapsody, the ship of I saw tonight as well that the dockers of Tarragona had also said that they would refuse to have it. And that the Catalan port authorities had also said that a ship would not be allowed to go into Palamos either, and that they were fighting back against it. It seems to me that these sorts of actions are extremely important in developing the movement and also showing that it is indeed a working class movement that is fighting for the interests of working class people and can therefore appeal to people outside Catalonia also to say that it is their fight, a fight for democracy and for working class people's rights. It is incredibly inspiring that there were, I think David said, 70 demonstrations in solidarity, many of which took place in other areas of the Spanish state. This is not simply about the rights of the Catalan people, it is about whether Rajoy is allowed to destroy democracy in the Spanish state, whether he is allowed to ride roughshod over people's interests. And therefore, whatever the specific issue, people across Europe and across the world must stand in solidarity with Catalonia as part of a broader struggle for working class people's rights, for transformation and against the market and against the rule of the League. That's why it's important for us to be here, why we should resolve tonight, surely, to demonstrate in London at the embassy to put out clearly to people that we are on the side of those who are bravely resisting. Fantastic to see the people forcing the riot police to retreat outside the CUP headquarters. Fantastic to see that their side is on the run and we should keep them on the run.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. I feel I may, well, I would like to speak from a different perspective because I feel you're mentioning a lot like the people's movement. Well, I come from the Catalan countries. Yeah, I would define myself nationalist, not necessarily independentist. But I don't know. I would like to contest the general narrative that this is a people's movement because I don't see it the same way. I'm really upset for what is happening these days in Catalonia and in the rest of the territory, because a nation aspiring to be a democratic, because I don't think we are democratic yet, would allow their peoples to choose their destinies, right? And it's not happening, as you can see. So I'm really upset that the Spanish central government, they're embarrassing themselves by what they're doing. But also I'm upset because I feel that's how I interpret the situation, that the Catalan right is manipulating these events. They've been, they converted to independence, to be independent overnight, I think. That's how I read the events. And they're just, my view on right politics is that they don't care about people, they just care about the economy, about what they can get from it. And I think I see a clear manipulation from their side. So I don't think it's a bottom-up movement, but more an up-down movement. And it's sad that it's the Catalan right who are playing this role. Well, that's I only wanted to share with you.
Well, first answers for the hotel workers from both Oslo, WP. Okay. First of all, I think Podemos it's a pity for Podemos not to get involved in the Catalan from movement for independence from the very beginning. When I saw that Podemos was the first force in the Spanish elections in Catalonia, in the Basque Country, you know, two places where the elections are very entertaining because it depends on if they are local with the Europeans or whether they are Spanish or they are autonomous people vote differently. You know, I think Podemos should just forget about sentimentality and put into practice, get involved in Catalonia and in the Basque Country, but now in Catalonia because the relations of forces, get involved in the movement and demonstrate with the left in Catalonia what's the social agenda in Catalonia, and they can see in the rest of Spain what are the priorities, you know. It's in this world, you know, independence doesn't mean anything. You get independent and then you live in an interdependent world, you know, and you have to deal with your neighbors and with companies all around the world, etc. Another point about, you know, if this movement is from the top down or from the down top, you know, everything started with more force, you know, more strength after a consultation in Arenys de Munt some years ago. Do you remember? Where the mayor, he was not from the CUP, he was from the Iniciativa per Catalunya. Okay, so, but everybody, okay, you will
explain what Iniciativa is, please.
Okay, yeah, Iniciativa per Catalunya is just the former communists, okay? But not all of them are independentists, not all of them are not independentists. But anyway, that mayor, with the support of everybody, started a consultation, and from that consultation, 500 consultations, you know, were carried out all around Catalonia, and even in the big cities. So it's and the right wing in Catalonia has been forced to get involved because they saw the strength of the people, you know. The independentist demonstrations before the decision of the courts, you know, against the autonomy, it was 40,000, 30,000, and after that decision it was 1 million, more than 1 million. So what happened? That everybody was decided that the recentralization, well, that there was no future in Spain for them. But there are a lot of grievances in other autonomies, but the relationships of forces in Catalonia is different at the moment. In Catalonia, in the Basque Country, they were divided by the independentists were divided by the violence issue. Okay, but in Catalonia, the relationships of forces is different. So I think that's that's very important.
I would like to follow the argument against the independentist movement being from up to bottom. I respect your position in a way because it's true that the whole political situation is not simple. No historical movement or historical moment is simple. You can't just describe it one way or the other. It's obvious. And it's true that some people have tried to utilize the popular movement to their own gains and their own interests, and I think that we can all agree to that. However, I find it really difficult to argue for your position, because as Rafael was saying, everything started from the very bottom, people organizing themselves in small communities, in small assemblies in different towns. And it's surprising how much this issue about independence and national rights have how do you say? Drag loads of other debates in the arena. For instance, this very right-wing conservative government that is manipulating the Catalan people has, as the comrade here said at the beginning, approved many laws, LGBT rights laws, bullfights, fracking, evictions, against evictions and all of that. And I find it really difficult to argue that this is working. This is something that goes in the direction of protecting the elite's interests. I find it really difficult to argue that. Obviously, there are people that will try to bring that to their own interests, but I think they're losing. They're losing, and we will not allow that to happen.
Hi, my name is Alex. I would like to argue against the independence movement in Catalonia is a bottom-up movement, and the right is not manipulating it. In fact, in Catalonia is happening something amazing, that there is a transversal union from far left to right. And I know, I've been involved in the Catalan UK community in the UK for several years, attending the debates. And there are people that not represent your values from the entrepreneurial community. Antonio Abad, for example, the president of SECOT, who is openly pro-independent, and he's in favor of uniting with the left, because in order to achieve independence you cannot achieve it just with the left or the right. To achieve the majority, you need to unite. And I think it's very amazing that in Catalonia right now there is a coalition, left and right, just with the objective of achieving independence, which, don't forget, is about achieving dignity and achieving the right to decide and achieving true democracy, which right now, as we all can see, and I'm very distraught about it, because yesterday for me was a very emotional day. Spain is not a democratic state. It's a fascist, the fascist state, and the people, the used Franco 2.0, So people in Catalonia want freedom, they want the right to decide, they want dignity, they don't want money. They're not looking for more money from Madrid or better fiscal deal. They just want out, and they want the right to decide. And it's not being manipulated. It's not the right, it's not the left. It's the whole spectrum of society. Yes, it is. So you're here and you're here. You have to distort. To basically do a false message. I'm sorry to say, but it's false. It's false what you're saying. There are people from the right, there are people from the entrepreneurial community who are pro-independent, and they might not have been always so, but they are now.
Speak about corruption then. All right, well,
Thank you.
At the back. We are starting to run out of time. I can only take a couple more contributions. I have had somebody indicate who's already spoken, but I would like to give preference to people who haven't yet had a chance to speak. If you've got a burning question that you want to ask, then now is the time to indicate that you need to ask it, because I'm going to bring the speakers back soon.
Good evening, people. Sorry, my English is not the first. I'm Spanish. Since my point of view, I could analyze this trial since 2 points of view. I can analyze since the democracy, this is a system, or since the ideology. Since my point of view, what you are looking for, Catalonia, is not legal. It's not needed, and it's fastest, in my opinion. You should respect my opinion. You will finish, I have listened to you, of course. I come alone because my friend didn't dare to come here. There is fear. British people, you should know that they're scared to come here. I come from a Republican movement. In Spain, we are not a party. We call, in Spanish, Movimiento Ciudadano para la República Constitucional.
Shall we translate it? Do you want me to translate the name?
Citizen movement for Constitutional Republic. Constitutional Republic. Sorry. Sorry. Since the point of view of democracy, of course, I agree with you that in Spain there is no democracy. This is the only point that we agree. In Spain there is no representative. In Spain there is no division of power. You will agree with me, for sure. I have reasons in this, in Spain, of these people. But even not in Catalonia. You are not better than us. You are the same. You belong to the same unity, the same law. Maybe you are quite different, I understand. I come from Sevilla. We are quite different. But I didn't ask anything. Didn't have time.
Sorry, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I had the woman over here wanted to reply. Yeah. And then I'm going to have to bring our speakers back. This is going to be our last contribution from the floor. Can we make one?
Yeah, I forgot actually. It was just, I just wanted to say that what I said about the manipulation, because it was very a coincidence that when they turned suddenly to be independent, it was when more corruption cases were being discovered. And it's like, oh, okay, we're independent now, let's deviate the attention. And you cannot deny that they were just profiting from the system, and that they were stealing from citizens, from Catalan citizens. The same way the rest of the not all of them, some politicians have done. No.
Thanks. I want to use my time to talk a bit about the Basque Country that one of the contributors mentioned, because, as he said, what we are seeing today in Catalonia has been commonplace for many years now, for decades, in that territory. And it's an excellent case of the point I was trying to make before, because when the leadership of the Spanish left sided in the late 90s and the past decade with the state, while journalists, politicians and trade unionists were being tortured and incarcerated in the Basque Country, the Basque left never stopped saying that their enemies were not their fellow Spanish workers, but the repressive and corrupt structure of the Spanish state, and that was what they were trying to overthrow. There has been an ongoing discussion for many decades now between the Spanish left and the left in Catalonia and the Basque Country. Because in spite of paying lip service to self-determination, the proposal and the offer that most of the left, at least the leadership of the Spanish left, has made to those, the working class people in Catalonia and in the Basque Country, has been, wait for us, help us win, and once we're in power, we'll change the constitution, we'll reform the country, and you will be able to realize your national rights. From the Basque Country and Catalonia, some have rightly answered to this by saying that it's actually the other way around. It is us, by realizing our national rights without asking asking for our rulers permission that will create the scenario where you will be able to change the country and the constitution. Unfortunately, because of the long presence of armed struggle in the Basque country, when these movements erupted in Catalonia and the possibilities of a mass movement in the Basque country, Basque society was trapped in a completely different dynamic. And the Spanish government, the PP, have made their best effort to prolong and to make this scenario as long as possible. The speaker there was completely right to call me out on simplifying Podemos' position. It was an issue of time, I'm sorry. But you're completely right. Both the Catalan Podemos and the anti-capitalist group within it have, for the first moment, opposed the decision of the leadership. They have organized solidarity across the state, which has been increasingly bigger, and in the last few days, as repression has escalated, they are leading resistance everywhere else. This is a scenario where the left everywhere can make gains. And we're still hoping that in the 9 days left for the referendum, the pressure from below in Podemos and the United Left will be able to force a change in the position of the leadership. Thank you very much.
I'll be very quick. Thank you for all the interventions. How England has treated Catalonia, I must say we have to put pressure on governments. Today, for example, from the National Catalan Assembly, they asked many Catalans to write to them MPs to ask for their contribution to push the English government. We have wrote them asking politely to follow us and also to spread the news about what's happening in Catalonia. Many people say that we are fighting. I don't like this word fighting because it means violence, and in fact the movement in Catalonia is quite peacefully, and that's extraordinary even for my group, CUP, which are the revolutionaries, the people from the really left, and that's why yesterday police were in our headquarters because they want us to make some demonstrations of violence, and we didn't do it. That's very good. It is true because the moment it's really tension, and because it's we just 9 days to the referendum, and they were seeking for these images, and we said the config, all WhatsApps, all groups, all news, everything, information was keep calm, don't fight, just leave your body if someone's grabbing you, because they were grabbing people. If someone grabs you, just leave your body there, like this, don't move, and just smile. And that was the answer, just smiling. Yeah, that was the concern, that was. And I think that's very, very brave, and I think that's what's happening, and it's most extraordinary. Besides Venezuela and Catalonia, I must say that if you see the news also, and if you see Rajoy, they are talking about democracy, we are talking about democracy. Nowadays, democracy is a word that can change the meanings completely. It depends on who is talking. So we need to reinvent it, or maybe we have to define which type of democracy are we thinking. About Podem, Héctor has already answered. I would say also and specify that they have their inner struggle. So I think that they have to answer that better than myself, because that's quite difficult. Because of the doctors, I think that they are extraordinary, and we have very, very, very lovely images about United Power and Unidad Popular, which is the working class, and I think it's extraordinary. Also the answer from other parts of Spain, from Galicia, from Basque Country, from Andalusia, from Navarra, and also Madrid, which is the capital, and we cannot forget them. And I think they are making a lovely answer, and yes, and they are, well, they say that after you, we come as well. We are going to be there. And about London, what you can do, and maybe that's what you can do, is follow National Catalan Assembly in Facebook, follow CUP Exteriors, CUP Exteriors. We are still doing lots of events. We are still pushing. We want to put all the prints that we are not able to put in Catalonia here in English. We want to make the world know what's happening. We want to spread the word. So please, please take Twitter and take Facebook, take everything and share and talk, because that's the only way. That's the only way. The photo afterwards, because that's the only way we can win. And from the bottom and to the corruption, the lady asking, and the fascism. Of course it's illegal. It's illegal because we are not allowed. The other part, they don't want us. I mean, we've been in this situation for so many years, more than 10 years. What's the answer? What's the other option? Please tell me. Tell me the other option, and maybe I can pass to the CUP headquarters, and we can work in another direction. But we haven't found any other direction. We are forced there. And well, I must say that for CUP, yes. For CUP, it's quite right, because we already know. But that's from the bottom to the high, and I do agree that sometimes it's a matter of corruption. But I also have to say that in even the right parties in Catalonia, there's people that are nationalists and independents, and it's a very complex situation. And also the right-wing parties, they make profit of everything. So we stick on the top.
Just a couple of things. Some of the debates, just a little snaps debate, does take me back to 2014 still, because there was many a packed meeting in rooms and strong opinions. But we have nothing at all to fear as work-class people, as our left, the socialist movement, to engage in those debates. And in fact, because we are about democracy, whatever your opinion on independence, however you see the future, however you interpret states, we can all stand against the repression and the attacks that are taking place with the Spanish state in Catalonia. And if we can't do that, then we've got problems. Disagreements, debates, that's what we're about. And so that took me back a wee bit, I must say. And I think really fundamentally, I'm glad I came to hear this actually, and it's kind of take it back up to Glasgow and speak to the comrades up there, make sure that we promote CUP, we promote all the movements. We are watching it, the whole world is watching that idea, and the whole world is watching because we've got a stake in it, wherever you are, because the world that we live in, as I said earlier, is just failing miserably on every score. So people are looking to see where these battles take place because it can inspire others. And lastly, in terms of peace, and I like the word fighting, but that's, I mean it in a sort of a confident sense and being organised, I struggle sense. I think in terms of the future days, then we can just hope to see more mass action, more involvement at grassroots, more debate and discussion, and drawing the line against the repression. And at the end of the day, the numbers, the determination, that's what will change things, that's what can hold back the repression with the state. So solidarity, hope lies in the streets.
Well, thanks for being so brief, I've got more time. Different things, I'll try and be as quick as possible. Top-down movement, no, people already said it. The main bosses, organisations in Catalonia are totally against the referendum, against the right to decide. Small businesses are in favour, but in the anti-war movement there are small business people. In environmental movements there are small business people. It's normal for them to be there. The Convergencia, the former ruling right-wing party, the leader and all his family are being on trial for corruption. If this was to avoid them being done for corruption, it's a big, complete failure. I mean, it's not worked. It is a broad movement, as comrades have said, which does raise some problems I'll come back to at the end. Somebody said Spain is fascist. The Spanish state is authoritarian and obviously very oppressive. I think to say it's fascist is a danger, because in fact there are fascist groups in Spain that are trying to build. In Catalonia, there are small fascist groups that are trying to build. We've pushed them back, in fact. We're united against fascism and racism in Catalonia. We've pushed them right way back. They're trying to come back because of the attacks in Barcelona just a month ago. Things have changed very, very quickly. So to say we're already under fascism, I think, is a mistake, because fascism is a risk. There were phalangists demonstrating in Madrid yesterday and in Barcelona, I think, today. So it's a separate thing. We shouldn't confuse issues. On the question of racism, I'm very pleased that Òmnium Cultural and the ANC, the Catalan National Assembly, are both supporting organisations who have united against fascism and racism in Catalonia. And last night, a concert outside the government offices at the end of the day, when I arrived quite late, there was a guy singing from the outskirts of Barcelona, singing in Spanish, Rumba Catalana. That's one thing. And the next act was Yassine from Algeria, with a Greek musician and Argentinian musician. This is Òmnium Cultural, set up by 5 Catalan business people in 1961. It's come an awful long way. So we can't just read things from 50 years ago. It is a very multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-language movement. About worker struggles, it's brilliant about the ports. That's already happening. The smaller left radical unions are already planning a general strike. They're talking about the 3rd of October. What's very positive is they've started talking amongst the radical left unions, and there is a history of sectarianism. But they are talking about trying to make it bigger. To make a real general strike, we need Comisiones Obreras and UGT. I think there is a desire there to make that really happen. They're talking about the 3rd of October, but depending on what Spain does, maybe we'll have to do it sooner. But that's on the table, and I think it's something that the top bosses organisation won't want. But it can happen, because people want it. Finally, coming back to the point about it's a very broad and transversal movement. Right now, there was violence yesterday from the police, from the Spanish state. That's where the violence is coming from. Always it comes from the top. It's sometimes from a few idiots on the outside and we have to try and control. But in any big movement, we start off all happy, lovey-dovey, but then there are serious arguments. That sometimes we do need to take a step forward that goes beyond what some of the right wing will want. Other times, breaking that unity will be a mistake. How do we decide what to do? What do we base ourselves on? That's why political organisation is important. We need those mass movements, because those are what changes things. But within those mass movements, there are all sorts of ideas. I'm sure in the CUP there were people saying, yes, let's get some sticks and we'll kick out the police. It would have been a mistake. I think the comrades did an excellent job there. A friend of mine from one of the main peace organisations, Jordi Armadanza, Fundació per la Pau, he was in the CUP head office. He's not a member of the CUP. He's not radical left, but he's actually more radical than he thinks. But he was there. Lots of people were there. One of the leading members, one of the councillors on Barcelona Council, which has been so-so about the referendum until now, he was there outside supporting the coup. So I think there's a massive solidarity, but particularly with the right, and even also some of the left, there can be arguments, there can be divisions. And that's why I am a member of a very currently small network called Marx21.net. We're a group that fights in the same tradition as the SWP, trying to build as broad movements as possible, as anti-war movements, anti-fascist movements, or now being part of this massive movement for the national liberation of Catalonia and for social change, and trying to talk to people in there about how do we combine the idea of being in a very big space, a broad space with people where we don't agree on everything, but also defend what we think. In the independence movement, there are racists. There are especially Islamophobes. In the left, there are Islamophobes. How do we respond to that? Do we say, we're going home because we don't like you? Or we want to be here so we'll shut up? No, we have our own organisation with our own publications. We can raise those arguments and fight with people verbally about the questions of racism, or about the questions of sectarianism, about how do we go forwards. I don't think we can write off the Spanish working class. We can say they are our potential allies, and the demonstrations, the rallies yesterday were a sign of that. That doesn't mean we stop trying to be independent. We fight for independence, but thinking those are our supporters. Comrades in Burgos had a rally this evening as well. They organised it yesterday. So these things can move very fast, ideas can change very fast, so we need to learn from all the different things from history, which is difficult to do on your own, but as a revolutionary organisation we can do it. The SWP taught me a lot when I used to live in Britain, and now we're trying to do the same sort of thing in the Spanish state. And so if you're thinking, for the many Spanish and Catalan comrades, if you're thinking of going back, help us please, we need more members. And if you live here, join the SWP, help to build solidarity with Catalonia, help to build a protest, and help to change the Spanish state, destroy the Spanish state, and also destroy the British state. It's just as much a scummy enemy as anyone in the world.